What up? Welcome back to the pod. You are joined by the one and only Uncle Don Don, everybody's favorite uncle. And I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Paul, aka
Mr. Qualified, per usual. How y'all doing?
and I feel like I'm a little rusty to be doing check-ins on Zoom. Like I got
Very.
used to recording with you in person. I don't even know where to sit, put the mic, look at the camera. Like
Yeah, it took a while to set up. It took a while to get things back to how I'm used to having them. So
the behind the scenes for which I did not just see is wild. But
genuinely,
here
genuinely.
we are, giving like Dalmatian teas right now. It was giving very much, what was it, Ren and 10 from Brown Sugar?
Hey, I just watched that recently, and
My
honestly,
favorite movie. It is my favorite movie.
it's top tier. Brown sugar is top tier. That's top tier black. That's top tier black cinema right there for
I
sure.
tell people all the time that was supposed to be my life. I was supposed to work in A&R. I was supposed to be in some weird committed relationship with my friend. Like you grow up with, like, when did you fall in love with hip hop? Like, all of that was supposed to be my life. I swear to God, minus the New York piece, because I'm a Chicago kid. But I was just like, yeah, this is it. I'm gonna get the beauty and the booty. Like that was, yeah. This was by
I,
far my favorite movie. But I digress.
I can imagine you delivering the line. We're here to celebrate divorce.
I'm that level of petty. You do some, I ain't gonna curse. You do
Richard
some stuff.
Lawson.
You do some stuff like that to me for real, and I catch you. Oh, I'm not gonna wait until we have a conversation afterwards. You see me, I see you, baby. We see we, okay?
Hey,
Hey, oh, okay.
great
Come
movie.
on, have a seat. Sit down. Embarrass whoever I'm with. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. No, the thing is, if you got a best friend that's actually down for the pettiness, oh, let's have a time. Let's have some fun. Let's have some fun. But no, so now I wasn't giving that in that movie. It's okay. Obvious reasons.
No, she
But
wasn't. She actually had like some sanity in that movie
she
because
did.
Tay Diggs was, well, he was hurt. This is a trauma response. Let's be real. That's
He was going
also
he
like
was going through a lot. He was going through a lot at the time.
Nicole Ari Parker was out here like going every which way with like, what? Are we supposed to be doing this? No, yeah. So now Brown Sugar is my favorite movie, but we are giving Dalmatian Brothers right now. So
I
we
give
about
it. Ren and 10 is crazy.
well, that was that was not the check-in, but now
Right.
that we have gotten past that, what's good? What's been up with you?
Man, I don't know. They say it's something about these late 20s. I don't know. I don't know if it's the approaching 30. I don't know if it's the slowly moving out of that like early to mid 20 phase. I feel like that late 20s is like it's a different realm of adulthood from obviously like that early 20s. Like 25 is like the one of the major milestones age-wise. But I feel like once 25 hits, every year is kind of this slow reality of like, whoo, yeah, this level of adulthood is different. And that's the season that I feel like I'm in now. Just a lot of transition, a lot of change, and it's not bad, but I think that I am just in a place of deep self-reflection, which has made me pay attention to and focus on my capacity more than I ever have before. Just because not only do I feel like the transition requires me to have a different perspective on my capacity, but I think I've also reached a place where I'm distanced enough from a certain era of my life to where I can finally look back and not be in it and kind of see myself in it. And I'm starting to see how while there's natural progress and evolution, there's a lot of things that stayed the same while you got here. So while you are a very different person than you were 4, 5, 6 years ago,
Mhm.
some of those things that are foundational, I've reached that crossroads where it's like, yeah, you're gonna have to shed some of this, bro. You're gonna have to shed some of this. You can't keep trying to find ways to keep trying to bring this extra baggage, this extra luggage, you're gonna have to let a lot of it go. But a lot of that is looking inward too. So a very interesting season, but one I'm excited for, but one I guess I'm just trying to prepare myself for as much as possible. At least with what is in my control. So that's kind of where things are now, but interesting summer ahead for sure.
No, for sure. Remind me and the people how old you are.
I am 28. Uh, I will be 29 at the end of the year. So 28 and a half for those that care about halves and whatnot.
I do. I care about halves. I care about wholes. I care about weeks, birthday months.
Fair.
Spoiler. I'm everybody's favorite Leo. Um, no, okay. So that makes sense because you talked about after you turn 25 and you like, ruh like what's going on here? There was there's a quarter life crisis, I think, that everybody typically goes through. It doesn't necessarily have to be at specifically 25, but for those that have took a quote unquote traditional path for some that have gone to college and graduated around 22-ish, 23, and now we're in like full adult world. Like, whoa, what is going on? Because all of your life you have spent on the same cycle. You went to school 9 months, you maybe had a summer break, you went to school, rinse and repeat until you were 22, 23. So now you know, at 23, like, oh, okay, I'm done. I graduated. 24 is like, okay. And 25 is like, wait, I'm doing this for the rest of my life.
No, for real.
Where's the class schedule? I need a teacher. I need a professor. Like, where's the counselor? Like
Where's
that
the
is
academic advisor, bro? Help me.
I help me. Like I need an adult. I'm I am 2 months shy of 34, and I would take all of the adults that I can take at this point in time. But that quarter life crisis is real, and it's interesting that when you were saying that, I see your Mamba mentality mantra behind you, a constant quest to be the best version of oneself. And I think at 25 is the first gut punch of like, oh, I'm Indiana Jones. We on a quest. Like, is this Maze Runner? Like, where am I going? Like,
It is the I think that particular quest and that particular journey of after the gut punch, after realizing that like this is this is my life, in a sense of having to figure it out. Um, it's one of the most difficult journeys you'll ever embark on, especially if you're intentional, because with that intention will come a lot of tough decisions. The journey of standing on tough decisions, and
mm-hmm,
then it is the evolution that comes from allowing yourself to shed things, allowing yourself to learn things, allowing yourself to unlearn things. So it becomes one of the most difficult journeys because it's so easy to float. It's so easy to just kind of go with the wind and say, well, yeah, this is just happening. We're just getting by. And you realize how much strength and courage it takes to be intentional and say, no, I want to shape my life in this way, and this is what it will take, and this is what I will have to go through. And I'm gonna have to take a couple more gut punches. There's a lot more gut punches to come. And I think that's the interesting thing too, because I look at things now, I'm like, I'm going through, not that I'm going through things by myself, but right now, like I am truly my only real concern. Right. Like I am in a space in life where like I have the luxury of really only having to be concerned with me. So a large part is also trying not to look too far ahead and say, well, dang, if I'm struggling with this, like as a man, as somebody who wants a family, as somebody who wants to be a father, a husband, I now think like I gotta figure this out because I pray I'm not reacting this way to gut punches when I actually got people depending on me, like a family depending on me. And not just to say that like it won't be difficult, but I just want to be better equipped, which I think is also why I'm trying to have the intention going into this particular season. But yeah, it's a series of gut punches that you never really know when they go in. And life be coming up with some crazy combinations.
uppercut, uppercut, left, right, up, down, X, box, box.
Look,
Like,
look, three jabs in a row. Like, whoa, where'd you learn this, bro? Like, what's going on?
Because I can say a couple years ago, like life was giving Mortal Kombat to me. It was very much finish him. Okay. And it wasn't cute, right? But I know how to duck and fight back. But in that regard, none of us know what we are doing.
Mhm.
Like you can, I know you mentioned like you are your only responsibility or focus right now, and that's fine. And I think that is how everybody should think because you do have to prioritize yourself. When you're on a plane and they say, yo, if things get whiskey wild and the little air mask come out, like put it on yourself before you try to help somebody else. Like you do have to prioritize yourself. It doesn't mean that you block everybody else in that regard. But it's an older white comedian. I don't remember her name, but um she was like cursing on stage. She like 70. And they was like, oh, you talk like that at your age? And she was like, I ain't never been this old before. I don't know how I'm supposed to act at this age. Same rules apply. Like none of us, as we all grow older as adults, we've never been 28 before. We've never been 33 before. So it's just like, what am I supposed to do? I'm taking all this information around me and trying to make sense of it to see how it applies for me because it's a constant quest. Like it literally says that behind you. So in that quest, how have you learned to accept evolution?
Definitely still in the process of, oh, for sure.
It's
You said what?
a page turner.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think part of accepting evolution is having a better concept of growth and what that looks like for you and what that means to you. Because change is one thing, but change doesn't always equate to growth, right? So for me, it's like evolution to me though is more closely aligned with growth because that's part of evolving to me
Mhm.
at least. So if I'm looking at accepting evolution, it's accepting that growth is not linear, which I feel like a lot of people, you hear that a lot, and a lot of people like to push that message and hope that people understand. But also that growth is for you. And I think that that gets, for me, I know it's gotten lost in, I feel like I'm a person that has always prioritized how other people respond to me, how I make other people feel. And that has stunted my growth because I have looked at my growth through the lens of its impact on other people. Like if I feel like I'm growing at a level and somebody's looking at me like, oh, you changing, you being different, I take that personally. Like I'm not supposed to be growing at that rate. You know what I'm saying? Or if I'm growing and I feel like I'm growing apart from somebody, it's like, oh, I'm not supposed to be growing apart from this person. Maybe I'm not supposed to be growing in that direction.
Mhm.
So I think the biggest thing in terms of the acceptance of evolution is that everything happens the way it's supposed to. Um, and in all honesty, people and things that are meant to be fixtures in your life will be there when and if they are supposed to. And you may not know how they are supposed to look, and you don't always control how they look, in different sectors of life. So I think that's the biggest thing in terms of accepting evolution is getting to that point where I look at my growth for myself and I also understand that how things evolve around me is not necessarily my responsibility. But there's still a relationship with my growth within that. So trying to find the balance in how I perceive those things and how I approach those things, I think that's the biggest thing with the acceptance of evolution.
Yeah, the balance piece I think is key because you do want to learn, grow, and evolve for you. And in doing so, you still want to keep your people with you. You want your team around you. Like it takes a village, it's a collective, it's all of these other like synonyms that you could put to say we are going to grow as a group. But everybody is not meant for the lifetime run, but everybody learns lessons in different ways. Everybody learns lessons in different times.
Yeah.
Um, and just because you grow doesn't mean that y'all grow apart. Like you even said that. Like you can still grow together with somebody, but there still has to be some level of interest alignment going on. But I think when you get into the back half of your 20s, it's a little different because you start to shed some of the, dare I say, like immature mindset. And I mean, even we were talking off camera, a week or so ago, and I was just like, respectfully, grow up.
Yeah.
He was like, okay, like I hear you. And it wasn't saying I wasn't calling you immature at all,
Right.
but we are still thinking in the ways that we have traditionally. And those traditional ways have been teenagers. That traditional way has been early 20s. That traditional way will always be the time spent prior to where we are now. So you have to be open to be like, what if I shake the table a little bit, and see
Yeah.
where the chips fall.
It's the idea of shaking the table is like, because it also gets to a certain point where I've done things a certain way for X amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, or if I haven't already reached that point, at some point you reach this place where I'm not getting the results that I want, or the results that I once wanted or that I was getting
Right.
don't do the same thing for me anymore. And so at what point do you change? I was thinking about this the other day. I vividly remember having a conversation with you. This was in fall of 2021, right? I had this my first job out of my master's and my first like real like this was when like, oh, 9 to 5, like this is my life. There was no more school, there was no more schedule, like there's no more script. This was you
Mm-hmm.
working now, figure this out. And I remember somewhere late in that year, and granted, there were, other things going on as well, but I um I remember telling you I feel like I'm just floating. Like I feel like I'm just kind of going wherever the water takes me.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about when I said that, and I thought about how that feeling didn't change for a couple of years. So even though I was aware that I was feeling that way, I don't think I was active in changing that feeling for myself, whether it was because it was times where I felt like I couldn't, whether it was times where I didn't have the energy, I didn't have the confidence. It set in with me that like, bro, for 2 years, you kind of just really just was going with the wind. Like there were a few moments where I probably could say I stepped out and maybe truly experienced life, but for the most part, I was just, it's Monday again. Great. I guess we got to get through another week. And you don't realize how common that is, one, but two, how easy it is to get into that pattern of just getting into a routine and not really experiencing and enjoying life, even if circumstances aren't the most ideal. So that was something I thought about as well. And even in this season, something that you kind of spoke to, I find myself and I'm trying to be better with not saying find a balance, but more so create a balance because I think you have to create it and not just go out and
Mm-hmm.
look for it. But being in this space where I do not want to self isolate, right? Like I call it self preservation, if anything, but I don't want to isolate, but I still want to allow the room for people to decide how they want to fit without me feeling responsibility for it or feeling a way about it. So this is where I'm at. This is the season I'm in. This is what I feel like I need to prioritize and focus on. In whatever capacity, how does somebody fit into your life when they may not be a priority in this season? That's friends, that's partners, whatever the case may be. But as the individual in the season, learning that you have to give people the opportunity, if you so choose, I guess, but you have to give people the opportunity to show you, right? Like you can't make a decision for somebody and say, well, I don't think you're going to be able to support me through this, so I'm just going to shut you out. It's like, no, okay, explain where you are because that's where you are. From
Mm-hmm.
there, they will tell you, show you, express to you how they feel about that. They will show you whether they can adapt to that. And you just not even so much follow their lead, but you just observe and move accordingly. And I think that's another big internal adjustment I'm trying to focus on is I've always had trouble allowing people to help me and support me to the point where, especially if I'm in a season where I feel like I need to figure things out, I'm just like, I don't want, like, don't take no pity on me. I don't want to be no, and not that it's a charity case, but it's just like, especially in this season, like I feel like I have things that I need to figure out. Like this is not all hands on deck situation for me as much as it's like, nah, Steve, you get your stuff together and then you figure out how you want to bring yourself back into whatever, social world in whatever capacity. But it's a large adjustment because it's also a different level of vulnerability, ironically for me, that I don't think I've ever approached or had to face. Like I'm open to being vulnerable, but the vulnerability of, hey, this is where I'm at, and kind of just waiting to see, you know, how people respond to that is a different level of like, oof, let me not worry about how this gonna look, or what they gonna do, or how they gonna respond, and just let it happen. That's the biggest adjustment for me. So
Especially because you and I relate on this. We are people that present as together. Like we have
yes.
it together. We don't have too many problems and woes. Like it is what it is. So the moment that you see a little, fracture in the armor, it's like, whoa, what happened? And it's
Mm,
just like, I've been dealing with this for a while. But we just don't show it to the world. And I had therapy last Friday. When I tell you my therapist was eating me up, like with the nicest questions in the world, but she told me, she was just like, you don't take the advice that you give other people, do you? And I was like, are you so loud? Like, shh. But I don't. I don't because I don't really know how. And I kind of heard you say something to that effect too. Like you're fine to be vulnerable and open up the space and things like that, but um being able to take the advice that you would give somebody is hard to apply for whatever reason to yourself. So when people do offer help or give some insight, you say like, "Oh, don't take pity on me." It's not pity most times. I mean, some maybe it will be, but like in this instance, it's not pity, it's support. It's not pity, it's venting. It's not pity, it's a resource. Like you cannot self-isolate. You can self-preserve, and by all means you should, but if you are doing it to the extent of self-isolation, then you kind of have done yourself a disservice in that because we do have to lean on people. It may be up to you to, get yourself out of that hole or crawl out of this or do that, especially if it's self-inflicted. But we have to, at all stages of life, late 20s, early 30s, if you mid 50s, wherever it is, we have to be willing to accept support from the communities that we have identified.
mm, yeah.
Again, to language being important, the communities that we have identified, not people around us, not this arbitrary, like, oh, you cool, like, hey, to your earlier point of being intentional, you have to be intentional of the company that you keep in the evolution on this quest that you are on, because how many times are you going on like solo journeys in the world with no help from anybody? Hell, Dora even had backpack, like she needed to talk to somebody. They might not really be talking back to her. This random, can you see where I'm going? Girl, no. You
How did
talk to
you even think of that, bro?
listen, my brain is an interesting place. Do not get lost in there, okay? But like even she had somebody. She couldn't see him, but like she had somebody on these journeys that she would go on. So that you essentially are Dora or maybe Diego, but you are on this quest as well. What parts of the journey do you think they can support you on? This rhetorical for the moment, but um you may have everybody on this boat and y'all going on this voyage to figure it out, but like somebody's gonna be there to steer the boat. Somebody's gonna be there to say, maybe we don't get off on this island. Somebody's gonna be like, hey, did you eat? So you have however many people you are defining to be invited on this quest with you, but you got to look at the skill set that they have and what could you learn from them? How could they support you in a positive and healthy way? That could be some homework for after. You don't have to answer that now, but so when you talk about those things of who you now are going to invite on this quest of evolution, how we are going to help support, because when you build a team, everybody's got their strength.
Everybody has a role.
You're gonna have somebody on defense. You're gonna have somebody that's a three-point shooter. You're gonna have somebody that can do this. You're gonna have somebody to do that. If you have a team and everybody's strength is the same, you're going to fail. So we have a quest.
Yes.
We have a plot or storyline. We got a few main characters, supporting characters in that, and kind of wrapping up this thought and analogy. What do you want the next chapter to look like?
Peaceful.
What does that mean?
At peace with who I am and at peace with who has accepted that and who hasn't. Um, I think a large part of the story up to this point is me not really being at peace about honestly much of anything. Whether it relates to who I thought I would be at this point, who I feel like I've been becoming, what my life has looked like, what I've been doing. I've never been at peace because it's never really been for me. So the other side of this is loving on myself more, which I think is the start, or at least one of the keys to being at a peace, a level of peace that can't be disturbed by those who don't fit, can't fit, don't want to fit into how life looks like, after this season of transition and change. So
That's fair. Sound like a good little story to have. I'm gonna just throw this in there too. Peace is not always constant.
I
Al-
understand that.
Allow peace to evolve as well, because for you to be 28, turning 29, and to say that you've not had peace up until this point is hard to believe. One, because I've known you for a while, and I do think there has been some peace in that. But as you evolve, that peace is going to evolve too, because peace 5 years ago could have looked like no relationship issues, right?
Yeah,
That also could have looked like no health concerns, right? Like everything is just kind of okay. But they say still waters run deep. So just because it's not moving don't mean there's not too much going on. Your levels of peace are going to evolve. You'll still have it to some extent, don't get me wrong, but just understand that peace is going to evolve, because as you evolve, all aspects of you will. So your interest in things, your desire to do things, your way that you speak about things, the confidence that you have. You may be confident now, 3 years from now, you may be more confident, right? That doesn't mean that you weren't confident 3 years ago. It
right.
just that level has moved a little bit, kind of like water levels. So just if you haven't already, just take that little nugget of knowledge to know that peace should evolve along with you. So when you look at it, we say hindsight is 2020 to be like, oh, I didn't have this then, or I didn't have that. You did. You just now have it at a different level.
That's real. And maybe I think with you putting it that way, I don't know if it is so much peace
Mm-hmm.
maybe that I am referring to, because I would agree. I wouldn't say that I haven't experienced it in some capacity before, obviously. And with it not being constant, I don't think that I'm looking for it to be more frequent. I guess I'm looking for better balance
There you
on the other side of this, because I don't feel like I balance peace with its non-constant, aspect well in terms of how I respond when the piece shifts or when the piece does start to look different. So I think in general, and just given everything else in the conversation, better balance like internally for me. Because I think if I create a better balance of how I respond to certain things, how I allow myself to have capacity for certain things, then when the inevitable changes, transitions, evolution does happen, I feel like creating a better balance leaves me more equipped to respond better for myself. And then from that, however that extends to the people that are connected to me, that feels healthier, that feels better, that feels even in a weird way like more efficient, because I have a better response to whatever is happening in my life. So balance, switch out peace, no balance in there.
go. Okay. Come on, balance. Everybody, I think everybody needs balance. Balance is the key to life that people have not probably realized or utilized enough.
Yeah.
Um, balance across the board. So sounds like that is everybody's takeaway. Find peace, keep peace. Try not to root peace in people too much.
Mm, mm,
People change, and not in a bad way. They just
right.
evolve. Find peace in a parent. You can love your mother, damn, right? One day she will not be here. So if she is not here, does that mean that peace no longer exists? Like you
Mm,
can identify peace in people, but maybe not rest on that laurel. Um, I'm just speaking for myself. So if y'all disagree, don't be like Donald said. Oh, okay, don't blame that on me. Live your life because I'm trying to live mine. But it sounds like we have given the people quite a bit to take in and filter for their own story.
indeed. Absolutely. I feel like a lot of good takeaways. You dropped a lot of gems, bro. I'm not gonna lie. You dropped a lot of gems in there. Just
Ooh, well, that okay. Come on, Dalmatian Keith Lee, go ahead, wrap us
hey,
up.
yo. Dalmatian Keith Lee is crazy. But man, great conversation, great vulnerability, great transparency, great challenging, great receiving and accepting on my end. Man, gotta give this episode. I don't lie. Give it a 12 out of 10. I'm not gonna lie. Give it a 12 out of 10. Give it a 12 out of 10. Think this is, I don't know about y'all, but I top tier. Top tier. One of the best ones, honestly. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Okay, well, look, Ren and 10 out.
I'm just gonna say rated 10 something. No.
Bro,